You are 60 years old. No doctor.
No pharmacy.
No hospital within 100 miles, because there are no hospitals. No reading glasses, no knee replacement, no blood pressure medication. Your teeth are worn down to almost nothing. Your back has been hurting since you were 40. Every joint in your body carries the memory of every hard thing you ever did. And outside, it is winter. Most people assume old age in the ancient world was just a slow, painful death sentence. That once you stopped being useful, once you couldn't hunt, couldn't run, couldn't carry your own weight, nature simply finished the job. But that assumption is wrong. And the evidence that proves it wrong is one of the most remarkable things archaeology has ever found. Let's start with the biology, because the first question is why we even get old at all. Every other animal on Earth ages in proportion to its usefulness. When a wolf can no longer hunt, it dies quickly. When a chimpanzee loses its strength, the troop moves on. Nature is not sentimental about this. Biology has one job: pass genes to the next generation, and once that job is done, the organism is largely disposable. Humans broke this rule completely. We live decades past our reproductive years. We get weak and slow and require enormous resources just to keep going. From a pure evolutionary standpoint, this makes no sense at all. Unless the old people were doing something so valuable that keeping them alive was worth the cost. That is exactly what happened. Archaeologists call it the grandmother hypothesis. And it changes everything about how you think about aging. Here is the theory. Around 2 million years ago, something shifted in early human groups. Older women, past the age of reproduction, began staying alive and staying active. Not as a burden. As a resource. They knew where the water was when the river moved. They knew which plants were safe after a bad season killed the familiar ones. They had seen the last drought. They remembered the migration patterns of animals that only moved every 15 or 20 years. They were living libraries. And the groups that kept their elders alive had a measurable survival advantage over the groups that did not. The knowledge those old people carried could not be written down. It could not be stored anywhere except in a human mind. Lose the elder, lose the knowledge. Lose the knowledge, lose lives. This is not speculation. Researchers studying modern elephant herds found exactly the same pattern. Groups led by older matriarchs made better decisions in crisis situations, finding water, avoiding predators, navigating threats the younger animals had never encountered. When the old matriarch died, the group's survival rate dropped. Your ancestors figured this out hundreds of thousands of years before anyone studied it. But here is where it gets even more extraordinary. We have actual physical evidence of ancient people caring for their elderly, not because they had to, not out of obligation, but choosing to. At a site in Iraq called Shanidar Cave, archaeologists found the skeleton of a Neanderthal man who died around 45,000 years ago. He was old by Neanderthal standards, between 40 and 50 years old. But here is what stopped researchers cold. He had a withered right arm that had been amputated at some point in his life. He was blind in one eye. He had severe arthritis throughout his body. This man could not hunt. He could not carry heavy loads. He could barely walk without pain. And yet he lived for years in this condition. Someone fed him. Someone kept him warm. Someone made sure he survived winter after winter when he could not survive alone. His community looked at a man who could give them nothing physically and decided he was still worth keeping alive. 40,000 years before the concept of a nursing home existed, ancient humans invented the idea behind it. And Shanidar was not unique. Fossil records from multiple sites across Europe and Asia show ancient individuals with severe disabilities, broken bones healed in ways that required months of immobility, degenerative diseases that would have been completely debilitating, who lived long past the point where survival would have been possible alone. Someone took care of these people. Every single time. Now here is what the old actually contributed. Because it was not nothing. The most valuable thing an elder carried was not physical strength. It was pattern recognition built over a lifetime. The ability to look at a situation and say, I have seen this before. A young hunter knows where the deer were last week. An old hunter knows where the deer go when the river floods, when the winter is late, when the herd has been overhunted. That difference in knowledge could mean the difference between eating and starving for an entire group. Old women in particular held something irreplaceable, the knowledge of childbirth, of infant illness, of which children had survived and why. Before any of this was written down, it lived in the memory of grandmothers. Research shows that in historical hunter-gatherer societies, the presence of a maternal grandmother was one of the strongest predictors of child survival. Not the father. Not the mother alone. The grandmother. She was the margin between life and death for the next generation. The elders also held something more subtle. They held the group's identity, the stories of where they came from, the rules that governed how the group treated each other, the ceremonies that mark the important moments, the memory of the dead. Without them, Every generation would have had to invent everything from scratch. But let's be honest about what getting old actually felt like in that world. Because it was not gentle. By 40, most ancient humans had arthritis visible in their bones. Their teeth, which did all the work that tools do now, holding, scraping, softening materials, were worn down significantly. Vision declined without correction. Injuries from a lifetime of hard physical work accumulated. There was no pain management beyond what plants could offer, and most of those we no longer remember. The cold was harder. The hunger was harder. The distances were harder. Getting old in the ancient world was a physical negotiation you made every single day between what your body could no longer do and what your knowledge still made possible. The ones who survived it were not survivors because they were lucky. They were survivors because they had made themselves too valuable to abandon. And here is the part that should stop you completely. Every single thing you know that you did not learn yourself, every piece of knowledge passed to you by someone older, is the direct continuation of a system that started hundreds of thousands of years ago around a fire, with an old person talking and young people listening. The grandmother who knew where the water was. The elder who had seen this winter before. The old man with one arm who had watched everything and forgotten nothing. They are why you are here. Not because they were strong. Because they were remembered. And because the people around them understood that memory, held inside a human being, is the most valuable thing our species has ever produced. You are not just the product of the people who survived. You are the product of the people who were taken care of so they could keep remembering.